Good morning. Welcome to the year-end stats report webinar. It's that time of year again where things are wrapping up. So you'll be preparing after the holidays to run your inventory and year-end stats. So we're here with this short webinar to show you the 4 most used reports, statistic reports we have in the system and how to use them to get your year-end stats. Okay? All right, so the first report that I'm going to show you is called My Production. To access the My Production report, I'm going to click on the menu button here. When the menu opens up, I'm going to scroll down here, and underneath the statistics section here, I'm going to click on this first one, My Production. So this will take me into the My Production report looking at the quick view. So what it's doing is that it's running your production from the beginning of the year to the date that you're running it, today's date. Okay, so it's giving me everything for me. So I'm non-MLS. So this first graph is year to date for your units. Okay, so each of these columns here applies to each of these rows. So starting with the total sold row. My total sold for this year was 745 units. My total sold for last year was 802 units. That's a difference of 57, so I'm coming up a little bit short this year. So my percentage of last year's business is 93%. Okay. The next row is the units that I double pop. I both listed and sold. So it was 1 this year, 1 last year. There's no difference, and I'm at 100% of the business on that. Next is the co-op listed, where I was on the listing side of a sold unit. So this year, I had 195 on the listing side. Last year, I had 142 on the listing side. That's a difference of 53. So I'm over last year's business, 137%. Next is the co-op sold, where I sold someone else's listing. This year was 549. Last year was 659. That's a difference of 110 units. And so I'm at 83%. Okay. And then the last row is for the new units, my brand new list numbers that I input. So that was 185 this year, 150 last year. The difference of that is in 35 units. So I'm at 123%. So that's this first column, year to date for units. The second column is for volume that applies to these same rows. Okay, so the first column is this year's sold volume. All right, so that's this year's sold volume, last year's sold volume, what the difference is between those 2 years, and the percentage I'm at, 96% of last year's business. The next one is where I listed and sold. I double popped. So this year, I only did that one, which was 217,500 for this year volume. Last year, it's a little over 3 million. This is the difference between the volumes. So I'm at 6% of last year's business. Next is the co-op where I was on the listing side of it. So that's this year's volume, last year's volume, the difference, and the percentage of that business of last year. Next is the co-op sold. This year's volume, last year's volume, the difference between this year and last year, and the percentage. And last is the new. So this year's new volume, last year's new volume, the difference between those 2 years, and the percentage of that business. All right, so year to date units is these first 4 columns, volume are the next. And then over here, it'll show me my current stats. So if I had any listings that were currently active, pended, or withdrawn, it would show those number of units and the volume in dollars here. And just below that is a chart representing each of those data that you see up here. So this is the units chart, and this is the volume chart. And if you'd like to print it, you've got a print button up here. Advanced will let you detach the window. So if you wanted to come here and then switch around and do something else, you could. You still have that window open if you wanted to compare it to something else. Or you can export the data of this table into a CSV file if you need to. All right. Okay, so that's the quick view production report. You switch the little menu here, there's another option called Member Year-to-Date Report. Again, it's from the beginning of this year to today's date for all of my listings. All right. So when you come in here, the first chart is for active listings. You have a row for units, listing size, volume, average list, median list, average days on market, average price change, average percentage of price change, the number of extended listings, and the number of back on market listings. So it'll show you what you have currently, what your office has, the percentage of your office's business, that's your percent, and then compare it to the MLS with the percentage. Moving down, the next section applies to new listings. So you get the same rows that you do up here with active listings, but you get a little bit more. So you'll get rows for units sold, side sold, listing price volume sold, sold price volume, sold to list ratio, sold to original list price ratio, average list of sold, median list price of sold, average sold price, median sold price, average days on market for your solds, average price change for your solds, and average percentage of price change for your solds. So there's a column for this year's year-to-date, last year's year-to-date, the change, the difference between those 2 years, the percentage of that, your office with the percentage, and the MLS with the percentage. Okay, moving on down, you get the same information for sold, your sold listings. The next chart is for any current pending listings, withdrawn listings. Canceled will always be 0. We don't use canceled status in our MLS. And then your expired at the very bottom. Okay. And again, if you'd like to print it, you've got a print button here, or again, in advance, you can detach the window or export the data that's in the screen. Okay. So that's the first report, is the My Production report. Again, how we accessed it was going into the menu button and underneath the statistics section, clicked on My Production. The next report that I'm going to show you is called the Broker Inventory Report. So that report is also located underneath the statistics section under Inventory Reports. So when you select Inventory Reports, it'll bring you here to the list of reports. It's the first report that you see here. So when you hover over the report link, it gives you a description of what's on that report, the information that it'll provide you with. All right? And you also have a link to view the sample of what it looks like. So we're going to run this report. So I'm going to click on Broker Inventory, and any agent can run this. Don't let broker in the name fool you there. It's for any agent. So I'm going to make my begin date for this report January 1st, beginning of the year, leave it at today's date, leave it at standard report totals. The check in the $1 Million Club, that will double pop your list and solds where you're on both sides of the transaction. And then we'll click next. So depending on how much activity you have, it could take a little bit for it to load. So here we are at the broker inventory and activity report. So it'll give you the date range here, and if you had the $1 Million Club turned on, what office you belong to, and then that would be you. So here is a complete inventory of everything that you had a hand in for the date period that you selected. So it lists the list number of each of the listings with the address, the taxing municipality, the price, the listing date, the close date, the status that it currently is in. So you'll have, if it's A, that means active. If it's A with a little asterisk by it, that means active with offer. If this is P, that's pending, S is sold, E is expired, and W is with withdrawn. Okay, so if you see letters different than S's there, that's what that means. Give you the sold date and then any remarks. So if you have it sold, you'll have the remarks over here, who it was listed or sold by. All right, so scrolling on down the screen here. Once you get to the very bottom of your screen, let me just grab this here, pull it down. A little faster that way. So you'll have a box with your current member statistics here. So first, any current active listings you have, it'll give you the number and then the volume of the active. Any listings that you currently have under contract, which are pending, it'll give you the number of those listings with the list volume. Any sides that you double pop, that's the sides listed and sold by self. It'll give you those sides, and you've got the volume there. Any sides that were listed by you but sold by someone within your office, that's what that means. Any sides listed and sold by another office, listed by you and sold by another office with the volume. Any sides sold by you but listed by someone else in your office, that's what that means. The next one, any sides sold by you and listed by someone outside of your brokerage, that's what that is. Then the total number of sides, listing and selling, and then any off market that weren't sold, like expired or withdrawn. The next box is your office stats, your brokerage stats, and then you'll have the MLS stats. That's everybody within the MLS. So this is a good report to check against your records to make sure that something that you may have listed or sold did not, it's listed in this screen. So that way you may not remember a list number, but you guys typically remember addresses. And you can check all of this against your record to make sure everything in here is the way that it's supposed to be. If it's not, then you can give us a call and we can give you directions on what to do at that point. Okay. So this report, again, is the broker inventory report. How we accessed it was clicking on the menu button. When the menu opens up, underneath the statistics section, you click on inventory reports. All right. The next report that I'm going to show you is also under inventory reports, and that's the production report. Now, this will just list your sales, not anything that you currently have listed or sold like inventory, but just your production. So we'll click on that. So here you choose your begin and end date range. We'll start that at January 1st. Select the property types that you want included in this production, and then you hit next. So it comes up first. You'll have your office's name and stats. So the property types as listing member, as selling member. The MLS board totals is the next one. And then down here, member production report. This information is yours. So here it will list all of the list numbers and the addresses, the sold date, the property type, and then if you sold it as a listing member, as a selling member, or both. So here, this one sold as a listing member. All the rest sold as selling members. This one was a double pop, so on both sides. So once you get to the bottom of this report, you'll have member totals. So this is your member totals, totals as a listing member, totals as a selling member, and then your grand total, which is both of those numbers added up here. Okay? All right, so this is the production report, and there's a print button up here. This is the production report that's under the inventory reports, how we got here, menu button. Once the menu opens up, underneath statistics, we went to inventory reports. The last report that I'm going to show you is called the summary statistics. So we'll access that. We'll stay where we are in the menu underneath statistics, but we'll go to statistical reports this time. All right, so it brings you to a list of the reports that are here. It's the first one, the statistical summaries. And again, when you hover over any of these reports here, you get a brief description. And if you'd like to take a look at what the report looks like, you've got a view sample link here. But to run the actual report, you just click on the report name link. So that brings us here. The screen looks a little bit different than the ones that we were using previously. So here, all of the property types are selected automatically. If you'd like to narrow it down just to a particular property type, you're free to do so. Underneath status, if you want to stick with a certain status in this report, you can. I always suggest leaving it open and letting the system, give you don't want to make any restrictions unless you have a point to make a restriction. But if you decided, for example, you just wanted to focus on solds, you can enter in a sold date range, sold price if you'd like to. There's a field for pending date. If you want to narrow down within a particular area that you may have sold in, you can, but you don't have to. Municipality will show when you select the county. These other things, if you'd like to narrow it down by, you can. I'm not going to. I just left them all selected here, and I'm going to move on down to the statistics type. Member is you. This will be for your stats. You can run them for your office by selecting office. It'll give them to you as your brokerage as a whole. For your company as a whole, that's what the company office is for. So if you've got 5 brokerages underneath the company, you'll get stats for those. And then the MLS, this is everybody. Okay. All right, so begin and end date. I want to start that at the beginning of the year. So I'm going to select January 1st to today's date and then hit next. All right, so that would be your name there, your office here and your name here. And you'll hit use this member. All right, so we'll wait for it to load. So when you guys run this after the 1st of the year, you can always backdate it to the 31st and run it to get your stats then. So anytime after the 1st of the year, whether if you do January 1st, January 15th, January 31st, February 3rd, you can always do your year-end stats back to the end of the year, December 31st. So here we are. Here's our report. So we did it from the 1st of the year to today's date for all property types. Didn't include anything else. So it's giving me all of the information that you see here. So there's a row for my sold listings. Total number of solds were 745. The total list volume of those sold properties is this number. The median list price of those 745 properties is this number. The average list price, the days on market, average days on market, average cumulative days on market. That's total market time on an address. Then next, the total sold volume for those 745, the median sold price, the average sold price, the sale price to list price ratio, and the sale price to original list price ratio. Okay. Next, list and sold. Those are the ones that you double popped. Same column information. The co-broks, whether if you were on the listing or the selling side, that's that number and the information that follows. New listings, brand new list numbers. Pending listings, withdrawn listings, canceled again will always be 0. We don't use that. The number of expireds, back on markets, extended, active in range, and current active. And again, you've got the print button here. So this will give you some information if you wanted to narrow down and kind of see, oh, what was the median sold price of all the listings that I sold. So it gives you some useful information there. So again, this is the summary statistics report, how we access this report, clicking on the menu button, and then underneath statistics, we clicked on statistical reports. So this will conclude our year-end stats video for the most often used reports for your year-end stats. If you ever have any questions on this or anything else, please give us a call at the help desk, 414-778-5450, or you can email us at support@metromls.com. Have a great day and sell lots.